Hello, it's me, Annalisa, with my spiritual friend. I don't know if anybody's going to come in today. Who knows? But this is just a discussion part, a spiritual discussion. And one thing I'm going to talk about today is self-forgiveness. Because I had a specific request from one of my subscribers about it. And I've seen it come up, actually, a client yesterday of mine. Welcome, whoever's here. We're just going to start talking about self-forgiveness. So on a basic level to start, first of all, forgiveness is really sort of about perspective when it comes to ourselves. Hi, Nora. Hi, spiritual goddess. When we're really hard on ourselves and we constantly mull over the past, our decisions that we made, mistakes we made, we haven't learned from them. And really and truly, we learn from our mistakes. That's why we have them. I think that's a pure goal for them, and we should sort of welcome them. They allow growth and opportunity. So the thing I explained to somebody yesterday and this is something that a lot of people, when they're searching for spirituality, Happy New Year. When they're searching for spirituality and they're searching to, they believe in something bigger, and maybe you haven't done enough research on your own and you don't know what's right and what's wrong, or who's feeding you a line of garbage and who's being honest. This particular client of mine, and she had gone and gotten a reading, and the person told her she needed all of this healing, and if she'd shell out all of this money, she would light these candles. And this is not a new story. This has happened to a lot of people. This is why I put on my thing for entertainment purposes only, because there, in states like in New York, there are laws against fortune telling. And what that woman did was unethical. And someone did the same thing to me, or tried. So what happens is, I believe everybody has a gift, and so they'll tap in and they'll be able to get some information on you. And then they take your vulnerability and they take advantage of it. And so this woman was beating herself up for believing in it, and almost kind of moving to this place of, and then sharing this information with somebody else and saying, you're cursed, or your energy is off. Or someone else told her at one point in a reading that her daughter came in the world with underdeveloped chakras. So it's like you have to be careful on who feeds you information spiritually, and then don't beat yourself up for it if you believe it, because you're searching, and these are lessons. And so for me personally, in the early 2000s, I moved to Houston, and I was looking, and I always knew I had these abilities, but I didn't think it was a two-way street. I thought that they would just happen. I had no way to tap into it myself. So, and I've always had a spiritual connection and a connection to God. What I found religious wise didn't really fit with what my soul sort of told me was true about God. So I went to this woman to get a reading, and she told me I was cursed and that I needed to pay her all this money. And I said, well, I don't think I can pull that much cash out of the bank in, one transaction. So she said, oh, that's okay. You can go buy all these clothes and bring them to me. And I was like, what? Like, that to me was like, I don't really, like, that doesn't sit right. So she actually even called me and harassed me for several weeks afterwards. I didn't answer the phone, but I thought, that was crazy. But I fell for it, because nobody comes to me for a reading when they're in a super awesome place. If you're doing really well, you're not going to go and seek out some kind of advice or guidance or whatever. So people know that. I know that. I recognize that. But I'm not going to take advantage of your vulnerability. But there are people who will. But don't get mad at yourself if you got taken advantage of. Don't get mad at yourself if you made a mistake somewhere along the way and weren't nice, or allowed somebody to treat you a certain way, or whatever the case is that we tend to beat up on ourselves for. We come into this human body and this incarnated space. Really? Yes. We come to this And here's the thing. I think the lesson in that Rosewater is that what I got from that was a lesson, honestly, for experience, to understand what people go through, and to understand that people, it's another space of vulnerability, and it's okay. I'm grateful for that experience. I'm grateful I learned from it. And to know and to understand why it happens to other people. So I don't sit in judgment and go, well, that's stupid. Why would you believe that? I mean, I need to come from a place of non-judgment when I do this work. Someone logged off. They must have realized I'm not answering questions today like that. So understand that we come into, hi, Emily, we come into this space of human experience because we're supposed to learn, and you're not going to come with all of the knowledge and everything else. Like, you don't send your kid to school into kindergarten and go, well, you should be knowing, calculus level, 12th grade calculus, and advanced physics, and you should know all of this. Why don't you know it? You don't expect your child to know everything. So don't expect yourself to know everything, whether you're an adult or a child or whatever, whatever age you were at. Don't hold it against yourself for not knowing. Have compassion for yourself, have empathy for yourself, and learn to say, well, okay, I didn't get it right the first time, and that's okay. And I'll learn. And now I'll be ready, and I'll get it better the next time. And if you don't get it better the next time, you go, well, it's okay. I'm a work in progress. You learn to be gentle with yourself. That's really what self-forgiveness is just to not hold the anger and the judgment against yourself and experiences, and just release it, and just have empathy and kindness for yourself. Hi, Mom. Pinky Lee. We aren't perfect, and we come to this world trusting that we're going to learn in the ways that we learn here, and doing better this time, so maybe you can remember the next time you come in. And I know some people don't ever want to incarnate again, so they say, but my life's not been really like a cakewalk, but I know I'm going to incarnate again, and I'm kind of looking forward to it. It'll be interesting. Like, well, what do I get next time? What's the layout? And will I do better? And will I remember more? Will I come in with more of the knowing next time? What was another thing that I saw come up that another thing I want to talk about was, or does anybody have any questions about the self-forgiveness? Or want clarity, or you just kind of hear self-love. Self-love. Oh, the other thing about self-love, when people don't realize, is when you're kind to other people. So if you think about your energy, what you put out there comes back to you, right? So when you're kind to somebody else, don't expect anything in return. Don't expect a thank you. Don't do it for that. Just know that what you put out there genuinely comes back to you. And so do it for self-love. Do it because you want the good stuff to come back to you too. Don't have like, even just when you do a favor for someone, don't worry about a thank you. That's just information. You don't even have to hold judgment. If you're like, well, I don't want to like always do things for people and they're not grateful. Okay, that's fine. But then take that as information from the other person, rather than hold on to anger about like, well, I did this and they didn't even say thank you. Well, okay, so then just don't do that again for that person. And don't hold judgments. Don't hold a judgment about yourself, because the kindness will come back to you. But don't sit in anger about it either, because that's not good for your energy. The message is for you, so correct. I think it was actually Danny 333 that asked about that. I just checking my phone because make sure that my kids are at school, so I want to make sure I'm not missing anything. Any advice for manifestation? Many of us have goals and vision boards, etc. But is there anything we should do to keep in mind when we are trying to manifest? So if you find a spot where you're slightly in doubt, use that rather than go get worried and focused on that. Just go, okay, let me just adjust. Use it as a mental awareness from your guides that you just need to adjust your energy a little bit and just adjust your headspace a little bit. The other thing is, I was talking to somebody and she was telling me, she said, well, I was trying to work on my visualization of it, and I kept getting distracted. And I said, well, that for me, what I've learned from my guides is when I get distracted or I can't connect into it, it means that I'm not doing it the right way. So one of this person's things was they wanted to manifest a healthier workplace and nicer people. So she was focusing on the other people being nice. And I said, what you get wrong in that is that you can't control anybody else. You can't make them shift and change. But what you can do is when you're manifesting, say, a nicer workplace or nicer relationships, either not being affected by their behavior, or them not noticing your energy, or being like learning to just not even notice the things that they're doing. That's a way to manifest that way. Manifesting things, again, it's if you're not fully in alignment with it, like if you keep getting distracted from that moment or whatever, then you're not fully in alignment with it. And that's just a sign from your guides that you need to adjust. Like, so instead of saying, maybe you're saying, you're focusing too many on the details. And so then you want, let me see, like financial abundance. You just say, I can easily pay my bills and have money left over. Like, don't put so much focus on what the number has to be, because then if you put too much focus on what that number has to be, it might catch you up energetically. Blessings, Rochelle. I'm glad the message resonates, Pinky Lee. The reason why I share these, and I always believe that whoever needs to hear this message will hear it. And so even if somebody else asked for it, whoever shows up here, it's typically because they need to hear this and they'll feel called to hear it. It happens to me all the time when like something will show up and I'll go, oh, I'll happen to catch it live. And it's like I caught John Edward live yesterday. I don't know if you know who he is, but and he said something, I was like, oh my God, that could be me. And it isn't that it was really necessarily for me. It's also another way that things come through that you need to hear. It's not necessarily that it's this magical, whatever. It's just a timing and a vibrational thing. So I'm glad it resonated with you. Your astral travel experiences. I noticed that I've been trying to communicate a particular person while. Wait, so you're connecting with a particular person when you're astral traveling, or you're intentionally trying to connect with that person? Hi, Kevin. Love and light to you. Oh yeah. Okay. So, yes, you have, but focus on, instead of connecting directly with that person, because what we get caught up with, that we need to connect with this human person, connect with their higher self. So focus on connecting with their higher self and it will sink in with them. Because it's not about connecting with this being. So like I do this with my husband where if I want something like I want to heal something or whatever, I don't worry about necessarily having the conversation with him, because sometimes it's like, whatever, I connect with his higher self. I don't know, because that just sometimes or if I want to, I don't know, whatever it is, but send healing to him, or I do it through his higher self rather than his lower self. And the ascension process. So here's the other thing about ascension. You're never going to be fully ascended. Not really. Sorry. You're always going to be a work in progress of ascension. And you may think you're there, right there, and then all of a sudden you fall back and you falter and you're like, oh, well, why did I behave that way again? Or that's like my old self. Why would I do that? The thing you can do is go, oh, I recognized it quicker. I recognized the behavior or the reaction quicker. And so now I can modify my energy quicker. That's kind of what the ascension process is. And then getting to the point where then, okay, that one doesn't bother me, but now I have this other thing. And it's just your continual work in progress. If you're fully ascended, you're not going to be here anymore. So just know that about it. So yes, the ascension process is working for you, Rochelle. Um, yeah, everybody is sort of partially ascended. If you're here and you're showing any interest in spirituality and you're growing in your own spiritual journey, then you have, like, it's not, Ascension isn't really about an end goal or a specific state. It's just your own growth in your spiritual journey and your spiritual connections. So for some people, Ascension may be becoming a spiritual guru and having these gifts and being totally connected and what can I do? And for other people, it's just having a spiritual connection with something higher than themselves and sort of using that as their guide. Mimi, I'm not answering any psychic questions today. This is just a spiritual chat, like a community sort of, I don't know, like going to church, like growing your own spiritual connections, but not really about me tapping in spiritually. No oops necessary. Don't worry about it. I'll be back for that on Sunday-ish. Yeah, Sunday I should. Something interesting that I've noticed in the spiritual community. Oh, wait, you fall asleep sometimes during meditation. Why is that? Because you're relaxed, Taurus. So it's because you've gotten to a state of totally being fully relaxed, and just honor that. A lot of people are like, no, that's not what it's supposed to be. It's cool. Like, that's part of meditation, is just becoming fully relaxed, and honor that and be okay with that. Because know that whatever information you're supposed to get, like if you're doing meditations to connect and get like a full direct connection with your guides or whatever, whatever you're going to need to get, they'll download when you're sleeping. You don't have to worry about that. Or whatever clarity you need, you'll get it when you're sleeping, and it'll sit in your subconscious. So you won't necessarily be consciously aware of it, but you'll find that maybe you react differently, or you react less, or with more empathy, or whatever it is. You'll be calmer, less anxiety ridden. It's because it sits in you in a subconscious level. Good for you, Rochelle. There is room for everybody. Oh, I guess that's why that reading part where I said I saw this like building, but it's like you and not the real estate stuff. You're welcome, Taurus. So another thing I've noticed when I see these like things about people and their energy, and they talk a lot about like, oh, don't do this, so you have the negative stuff around you. Well, newsflash, guys. Ascension isn't about everything being positive and wonderful and like this ethereal like type place. The earth is never going to be like that. That isn't this plane of existence. This plane of existence is, there's going to be trials and tribulations. There is the positive and the negative. It's about duality, but balance, right? So what's going to happen with us people ascending and growing is it's going to offer balance to what was sort of this heavier negative energy. So there's still going to be the full spectrum of energy here, and this full spectrum of people with whatever thoughts and beliefs and experiences. And you're still going to have experiences that aren't fun. You're going to learn from them, but it's more about bringing balance back. So that's like what the whole, when people are like, oh, it's the 5D. No, yeah, people are ascending and sort of becoming more spiritual, but there's going to be more of a balance now. That's what we're looking for, is balance. You don't want all this or all that. So people can become addicted to spirituality and religion, obviously, right? So it's not the whole ascension, the idea of the world moving into this 5D, whatever, blah, 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 language you want to use for it is not about, it's just about finding there's going to become more of a balance, right? The other thing is I saw somebody post something about like, my vibration is higher than yours. And I know they were sort of saying it tongue in cheek, but the reality is when you think that way, like, oh, I'm just more ascended than they are, or, oh, my vibration is just higher than theirs. Like you kind of get into that better than thou spiritual mode. You're really not. You're really like, that's your ego kind of popping through and like comparing. And it's like, well, I'm just where I'm at and they're where they're at. And it's cool. Like that's the level you want to be at. It's like, you don't have to like everybody's energy or feel good in everybody's energy. That doesn't make you better than other, but just try not to get like pious about where you're at in your journey. So Rochelle, for past life experiences, what's helped me is doing meditations where I kind of head down into, and when I sort of set the intention that I want to know. I've also understood, like, it started always with dreams and like just real strong feelings, and then asking for clarity and it coming in other ways. Um, so I used to always have this dream. Well, first of all, like in my late 20s, developed like a weird fear of flying, and I've flown my whole life. Well, not my whole life, but since I was little. And it was weird. I couldn't figure it out. And it was not connected to 9/11 because it was well after 9/11. And I couldn't figure it out. And I was like, what is this? And I kind of just started asking, like, what is this? Why am I having this? And I started having these dreams. And then I had the beginnings of the dreams a couple times before this happened, but I started having these dreams and I realized that in some other life, but definitely a different plane of existence, I kept seeing myself in some sort of aircraft standing up and like coming towards like a large canyon wall, but bigger than the Grand Canyon. And I would see like we were going to crash into it, but I would always wake up beforehand. And when I finally saw the impact and then just everything went black, and so there wasn't like any pain or suffering or anything, I realized that in whatever that plane of existence was, I was around the same age that I was at that time. And I had passed in this crash, and I no longer had a fear of flying in this lifetime. So it was just like I just had to sort of like move through that experience to get past it, and also recognize that time isn't linear. It's sort of like all happening at once. So even though that was a past life and in a different but felt like more futuristic plane of existence, it's like still all whatever. So you can tap into anything anytime, just through meditation, through questions and asking for validation, and they'll come to you whatever's most comfortable for you to understand it. I've also had really deep meditations where I've then, set the intention that I wanted to learn about a past life and this connection to whatever, and had very, very vivid, detailed visions of them, experiences, and then, remembered them. But the key to remembering them is in those instances, I was in classes and stuff like that, but writing them down, because it will sort of slip. That's like when I do readings, or if I get like information that I'm supposed to end up sharing, like through this book or whatever, if I don't write it down right away or get it into my phone, into my notes, I won't remember it. Ramella, I do think the year will be better for everybody. It doesn't mean that it's not going to be rough, or there's not going to be, whatever, but I do feel like energetically 2020 is a much better year than 2019. 2019 was tough for a lot of people. Thank you, CY Midtown. Best of year to you too. Try to meditate to try to get a handle on past life experiences more. I noticed I love 20s and 30s, even 40s and 50s. So then you have definitely, when you notice that and you feel that connection, you definitely have a connection to that era. I know that I have a connection to the Victorian era, and I've had like dreams where I know that this is sort of connected to it, but I can't quite figure that out. And I've always loved, like, there's a movie that Judy Garland was in, Meet Me in St. Louis. I always loved that movie. So I know, like, there's, and the outfits, and probably if I really, like, I don't know, if I had to go now and live in that time, I'd probably hate the clothing, but visually I really like it. Regine, do you have any advice for how I can remember my dream better? I dream every night. It's hard for me to remember for a long period of time. Write it down. Write it down. That's all I can tell you is, and I don't remember a ton of my dreams all the time. You can also set the intention that you want to remember what's important, because there's sometimes a lot of like garbage that we get that's not really necessary for us to know. But to remember what's important, kind of set that intention before you fall asleep. And it's simply by saying, I want to remember, in your head, I want to remember whatever's important for me to remember from this dream, and to keep it with me. And also know that even if you don't remember it, if it's a lesson, again, it's in your subconscious. So it will stay with you and become a part of you. You're always scared of spiders. They freak you out. So they dream about them. And they were just warning to cut some people. It could be that. There's also, I always look up spirit animal medicine. I get really a lot of connections through spirit animals, and like that's messages that I get that way. So I'll Google like spiders and spirit animal medicine. Um, but if you know what the message is, then you can always remember your dreams, Rochelle. Good for you. I can't, but whatever. um, you would see them with those people too, and it was creepy. Oh, well, then that's a sign. I think that's a sign from your guides and your higher self that if you see spiders around the people that you should be cutting off, then that's like your sign. And once you do that, you probably would stop seeing them so much and dreaming about them. I can manipulate my dreams too. I think that's really cool. Like when you have recurring dreams that you can manipulate. And like, I'll know, like always in my dreams, whenever there's a car full of like a parking lot full of cars, I always know I can drive whatever car I want. Like I could just pick and I know that it'll go. um, uh, CY Midtown, I'm not doing psychic answers right now. So this isn't a reading. This is just a discussion about spiritual stuff and experiences. And also when you come back to my live one, that's for readings and stuff like that. That's usually Sunday nights. You just have to ask your question once. You don't have to do it more than once. I will get to you. Okay, so that's a tip. Rochelle said it helps her to lay in bed a little bit longer. That helps her remember her dreams. So if you have the opportunity to do that, I know that usually I'm like woken up by my kids and slammed out of my sleep. So that doesn't really happen a lot for me. But if you have the opportunity to do that, that's probably why I don't remember a lot of my dreams anymore because I don't have time to wake up. She also asked, and also setting your angels or your guides, however you did delineate that, whatever's more comfortable for you. Ooh, sorry. Ask them to help you remember. That's the setting the intention part to help you remember. Have I written a book? I want to write a book. I'm working on writing a book. You have lots of big gaps in your knowledge. So I like Brian Weiss. I think it's Many Masters, Many Minds. That's kind of talks about multiple lives and reincarnation. And I like him because he was I think he's a neuroscientist or something, or a psychologist. I can't remember, but he's very science minded. And so he didn't come in from an airy fairy aspect. He came in from a real wanting to understand why there is this connection. So that's why I really like him. I started with, personally, when I was moving away from religion and looking to what people believe, I started with Doreen Virtue. And I know she gets a lot of bad rap in the New Age world because she switched going back to she's now a reborn again Christian. But just because she did that does not invalidate the messages and the information she shared before she became born again Christian. That's her own personal journey, but it doesn't take away from the messages that she shared. Some of it is a little bit out there, but I like it. I like Florence Scovel Shinn. That's a little bit more, it's great for like law of attraction and learning the I am stuff. I don't know. The other thing I just recommend is going to the bookstore. Don't go on Amazon because there's something about physically being with the books and setting the intention, like, help me find what I'm looking for. That will help me most. And then just read as much as you can, or go to the library. They have for the New Age section in the library, and just read. And remember that if it doesn't sit right with you, if there's some fear connected to it or anxiety connected to it, just trust that and know that, okay, well, this isn't sitting right. So I'm going to be like, not say that this person said this. Another thing that was interesting is a friend sent to me, because she's learning about manifestation, and she sent something to me, an article that somebody wrote. Well, like, my friend did this, and they said, this is not my friend that wrote this, but the article or the blog or whatever it was, that her friend was manifesting and was asking about somebody's, like, whether her fiance was the one or not, because they had broken off their engagement, but they were still in contact. And she said, if if I see pandas all around, then that's a validation that he's the one. He's the one, the soulmate. First of all, so I said to her, I said, I know that this is wrong. I can feel that this is wrong and this isn't manifestation and she's not getting it right. But that's my mom. If you're watching, Mom, I'll call you. I can feel that she's not getting it right, but I can't tell you why. So I sat with it for a while. And what it was is I said, she's not manifesting. She's not manifesting anything. She's looking for validation. And so then like in her looking for validation, then she's like sort of seeing pandas everywhere because she's sort of now manifesting pandas and not whatever it is she's thinking. So I don't know why I rambled on about that. Just remember that just because you read about it doesn't make it so. So sort of like, you know, even Jesus said this in the Bible. Do not follow blindly. Trust your gut. Be discerning about the information you get. So I don't have a recommendation. I like just, you know, those couple people, but then like sort of follow your own intuition to where you get pulled. Okay, so Rose, you said you have deja vu moments often. You can't remember if it's something you dreamt about or saw in a vision or something. There's a connection to it, whether it's a past life connection or I know for me, when I dream, I don't have deja vu per se. Like I'll know it's like a feeling of knowingness. And I'm like, oh, and I guess that's the deja vu, but I get that very rarely where I'm like, I know I've been here before. I usually just know, oh, I was definitely here in a past life. Then you can have precognitive dreams where you dream an actual event, but don't remember it until the event happens. That's different. That's a precognitive dream. That's not deja vu. And people get that confused a lot. I don't know if it's confirmation. I don't necessarily feel like that's the confirmation for being on the right path. The truth is you're always on the right path. And I know that sounds crazy and people don't think that, but even when you're in the struggle, you're learning something from it. So it's a guide that you need to move, you know, it's still part of being on the right path. It's just a guide to shift your energy over and move it to be more in alignment with where you need to be, but you're still learning something from the struggle. And I think some of the sense of familiarity of deja vu is liking that experience in the past or liking those places so much in other lifetimes that you sort of want to still have a connection with it in this lifetime, but not the same experience. So it's sort of like when you go on vacation and you really like it's trying to reconnect and recreate without having that full same experience. Or maybe because you have this lifetime and you have a different journey here, you want to it is like not wanting the same experience, but still wanting to reconnect slightly with it. I don't know that I would necessarily say that that's a post, at least that's my belief. And you're totally welcome to yours, Rochelle. So I'm not negating what you're saying. I'm just saying that my belief is that it's more of a just liking that experience in that lifetime and wanting to sort of reconnect, but not fully do the same thing over and over. On a first date once. Wait, so I think you were having Rose on a first date once. I think you were having more of a precognitive experience rather than a deja vu. How do you hear your guides, Mimi? So you start small. right? So you quiet your mind through meditation is the best way to start cluing in. Or when you get that feeling, like, say you get the feeling like, oh, I should go left then right, or I should bring this with me. Like, say you should pack, I don't know, like I've gotten before from my guides, it sounds silly. Make sure you bring an extra diaper for your daughter, because then she ends up having a blowout or something like that. But it's writing it down, or I have a feeling like I should reach out to this person. I don't know what it is, and reaching out to them. Just start with the little things and be brave, because it sort of takes a bravery to go, do you have a headache, or are you feeling okay? I got this weird sensation. I know this sounds crazy, but I just wanted to check on you. And doing that, because when you get those little validations, that's your guides talking to you. And then when you get those validations from others, it helps you open up, go, okay, I know what that feels like now. Now, the next time I get it, I'm not going to question it so much. I'm going to do it that way. So it's honoring what you get and saying thank you for it, because the more you open up the door, the more they share. So it's sort of those little things, writing everything down if you can, so that even if it's something like that seems so obscure and out there, you've got it written down so you can remember what you got, when you got it. And then when you can go back to it and go, oh yeah, I did get this. You can write down any feelings that you get with it, but honoring it. That sort of starts to develop your language with your guides. Because really all this is developing a whole new language. It's your own personal language. So just because somebody says, oh, butterflies mean that you're starting to evolve and open up and do that stuff. Well, for that person, that's what it means. But to you, it may mean, well, that means a grandfather, because my grandfather loved butterflies and blah, blah, blah. So that's your language. So you develop your own language, and there may be similarities. Like, so for me, I know when somebody dreams of fish, that means that somebody's gonna have a baby, but it's because I heard a story once. And so that's where I said, oh, okay, well, that's what that symbol means. So you develop your own language. But it's a slow process, and it's not going to just happen like that. And it's sort of a beautiful process. So just honor it and don't put any pressure on it. That's a big part of it too. Excellent. This is why I asked you. I'm pulled towards you and trust your judgment. Thank you. You will buy my book. Okay. I'll keep you in the loop. I've been told I'm going to write more than one book. So I haven't even written my first one. I have a whole bunch of notes in my phone. And it's funny because I get stuff like from my guides, and I just write it down, and I like go back, and I didn't go back to it for a while. And even as I add something on, I don't necessarily read what I wrote before. And I was reading over them all, and I was like, hey, these are pretty good. So thanks, guys. I remember how you got here, how you didn't want to come on here, how you were pushed in life, and you're just begging, saying, I don't want to go back to that. How I know my past lives were probably hell. Yeah, but so then be like, I can do better this time. I can, whatever I need to take from those lifetimes, even if I don't want to re-experience that, right? Even in a meditation type process, just know it's always there on a soul level in your soul DNA. And you don't have to go through that again. It is hard to be an empath. But it can also be really beautiful too. So there's always both sides of it, right? A precognitive experience is having a dream. So since I was little, I would have dreams that would happen and would come true. That's precognitive. So happening ahead of time. So knowing that something was going to happen. I had even just silly things. I would meet people before I would meet them in real life, or I would dream about math tests and science tests, and I could never remember them until they happened. I get so annoyed. I would dream about conversations. I dreamt about, it was funny, I would ask before I moved to New York as a travel nurse, if this is what I'm supposed to be doing, just let me dream about it, let me know. And I remember having a dream very specifically about, now I have naturally curly hair, right? It's, I didn't use it, always fix it this way, but I remember in the dream, curling my hair up my finger and knowing I was curling my hair to be curly, but I wasn't using a curler. And why would I curl my hair to be curly? Because my hair is curly, right? So I started, and my hair is wet because I just took a shower. Anyway, but so I started fixing my hair differently. I came to New York, and I went, on the street in New York, sometimes they'll hand out flyers. If you pay whatever, $50 or $100, you'll get 6 haircuts and go in. And I was like, well, that's a steal. I'm going to totally take them up on this. So I went, and they taught me how to curl my hair up so that my curls were more together and not frizzy. And So it's just like little things like that don't always, when you have them, won't always make sense. But that was a precognitive dream, and it was a way of validating them when I was here that, oh yeah, I was supposed to be here. I dreamt about my apartment before I came to New York. Like when I was walking in it in my dream, I remember thinking, oh, this is my apartment, but it wasn't my apartment at the time. So there's just lots of things that'll happen as a way to validate them when you're in the experiences that you are in the right place. You didn't even know about, I didn't know about it either until like I learned the language and the understanding of it. Clairaudient, clairsentient, claircognizant, and it can be really hard to deal with these gifts sometimes. I guess I look at it differently. I try not to look at it as being hard. It's just the more readings you do and the more you open up your abilities, it's like with any area that you may work in as a career, the more you start to understand, like in nursing, like I look at disease and everything else very differently. Like people are like, oh, that's the worst thing ever. I'm like, well, I mean, it's about, it happens. And so I take it a little differently. And it's not that I don't have empathy for somebody that it sucks that they're going through it. But I also know you're not alone, right? So I look at it like when I feel people's stuff or their ailments or their depression or whatever, it's like it's unfortunate, but it's also part of the human experience. So if you can remove the judgment from it, it sort of removes the weight of it from you. I know a family member, like through marriage or whatever, I remember the last time I saw him, I heard lung cancer, and I thought, well, that's strange. Why would I hear that? And because it didn't fit for him, like he wasn't a smoker or anything, and I would have thought it would have been the other person. And then it turned out a couple months later, we found out, they were going through it or whatever, but that he had it. Now I'm not supposed to do anything with it. Like just because I get the information doesn't mean I'm supposed to intervene or share or whatever. I'm just getting it and I don't know why, and that's okay. So protecting yourself from other people's energy. So for me, I don't really feel like I need protection. And I think that's the huge part of it right there is, I used to think I needed protection and I was like, and then I realized like, it's just their energy. Like, I don't know. I feel like my guides keep me safe. And it's a trust and a belief and a faith. If you give something power, it has power. So it's the idea, like, there are people that believe that people can curse them. Well, they're allowing it then. They've just opened the doorway to that because they have that belief. So I don't believe people can curse me, so it's not possible. I don't allow that energy into my space. So when you say protection, it's really changing your belief system. So I do a prayer, and I always explain this to my clients. I do a prayer of protection before the reading. I go, but really, we don't need it. And I said, it's not really for me, it's for you. So I've never had anything negative come into my space when I'm doing readings. I've never had any lower energies or anybody trying to fool or trick you because that's not my intention. That's not what's allowed here. And so it doesn't come in. Nobody can hurt you energetically unless you're open to it. So you can feel their stuff and be like, well, that sucks. That's yucky energy, but I don't have to take it on. So it's, again, just becoming like knowing that I can, even when I do my readings here, it's like, oh, I feel that on you. But the minute I step out of like focusing on your energy and like trying to give you information, I don't have it anymore. The minute you say, yeah, I validate that, I'm like, okay, I don't have that anymore. And it's not because I need to, it's just trusting that it's not going to stick to me. So it's developing that belief system that kind of like when I walk, I know that my guides are walking in a huge formation around me. Like I'm good, I'm safe. And it's just that full faith and belief in it. And I don't know any other way to, besides stepping into that and really just going, okay, I'm just going to trust you, other than doing that. Yeah. I mean, it's really just like trusting, like this, it's not about, it's just, even if you just ask them like, all right, so I don't really trust that I'm going to be like, I don't trust like my whatever. So just, surround me with light and move on with your day. You don't really need a thing, right? To clear a space, I don't really need anything other than believing and seeing the white light and the energy moving around. And so it takes me time and my connection and It's my experience that helps me, right? But you don't really need anything. I hold this really because I formed a belief that I like the way it feels, the weight of it in my hand. So I don't need it for a reading. I just like the way it feels in it. So it's more like Pavlov's dog, like bouncing me into an area, but I don't need it to do a reading. I can certainly do a reading without one. So it literally makes you feel drained sometimes because you haven't gotten to this, you're still in your process of growth. So when I first started doing readings, like in my psychic classes, if I did a reading for one person, like I would do like an individual reading for maybe 2 people. And I would feel like, God, I need to eat some sugar because that energy, I would be so high up, that energy would really need, I would need like the sugar and the simple carbs to like kind of bring me down. I'm watching the time because I have to be off in a few minutes. I have an appointment, but it would bring my energy down. So I wasn't feeling like a space cadet, like walking around and I couldn't connect with the earth. And I would be worn out at the end of the day. But now I can do these things and I just want to go watch some TV and like veg out, but I don't need to eat and eat and eat like sugary stuff or whatever. It's just the more experience you have, the less affected you get by it. Yeah. Because you're also in a sort of different headspace. It's not like your brain goes into a different mode too when you're doing readings and stuff and work. But yeah, I always feel like I don't need the protection. When I say I'm doing a prayer of protection, I'm like, it's really for you guys on the receiving end. So your energy calms down and you feel safe because I know that belief system is there that, oh, the negative stuff can come in. That's the other stuff that I really like. That negative stuff can't come in unless you allow it in, like, unless you're open to it, unless you sit in it. And I've had darker and heavier energies around me, but I just recognize that they're looking for food, so to speak, right? We all eat energy, fruit and whatever is a form of energy, and they're living things or whatever, right? So we take our energy to fill our body. So their energy is coming from a different source, but it's still, that's what they're looking for. It's a negative. They like the negative energy. They feel fueled by it. Think of them like Monsters, Inc. And that's a great little cartoon actually. and you can say like, no, you're not welcome here. Or send them love, surround them with love. That's always the best thing, rather than go, oh, I'm going to be angry and mad about it. Just send them love, fill them with love and say, you're not welcome here. And they sort of move away. Sometimes they're a little more defiant, but you can work with it. Energy vampires, that's again about allowing them to suck your energy, right? So it's setting boundaries. That's a lot of it is boundaries. And you're welcome, Rochelle. Boundaries are harder to set with people than they are with energy and spirit. Yeah, a protective light, or you can even just say like, just, make sure that nothing comes in and know that they're sort of like your samurais or whatever, like knocking everything away. So if you know someone is sucking and draining your energy, whether they're like whatever, that's also about you going, I like you and I care about you, but I don't really like this, can't deal with that. And that's like just more setting boundaries, like physical boundaries with them. Like, I don't, I know this is how this person is. So I'm either going to limit my time with them or I'm going to like kind of distance myself completely. And I noticed I took a class and this woman sat next to me. And she was like, oh, la, 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 all of this is going on. It's terrible, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, well, I'm sure it's all going to work out. Like I sort of didn't feed into all of it. And then once I noticed she went on, I was like, oh, that's too bad. And I didn't give her any more of my energy. I just said, oh, that's too bad. And I didn't like kind of engage in it. That's another way to kind of like stop the vampires from taking all of your energy, is just not engaging. Danny, just rewatch it. Do you have a question since you're here? You didn't miss anything. I did do a part about the forgiveness, so you can always rewatch this. It'll be posted. But do you have any questions? Don't be sad. I have a few more minutes and then I need to go because I got to wake up my other 2 and go get my other one from school. I will do another one, but ask a few questions. I'll stay here for a couple minutes for you. I have a Ricola. Do you have a question, Danny? You guys can always rewatch. It's funny when I want to do the spiritual talks, I know my numbers are much lower than when we do, it's also during the day on a Friday. So I get that, but I'm hoping you're typing. I'm trying to be patient because I realize there's a lag time. Your doctor's appointment. Do abilities ever go dormant and if so, why? Yes, they can go dormant. I've had mine go not totally dormant, but not as loud as they normally are. So they can go dormant when, like, say when you're young, you get taught, like, even as a simple thing of not to trust your intuition when you fall down and hurt yourself, right? A child falls down and hurt themselves. The automatic response from a lot of parents is like, you're okay. Well, when my knee hurts, you're okay. My butt hurts or my whatever hurts, like, you're okay. So you don't honor what they're feeling and tell them to trust their intuition and connecting with their body. You just shut them down and go, you're okay, you're fine. So that happens. And so you start to go, well, maybe they know better about this than I know. So if a child gets really uncomfortable, like around a person, the parent's like, well, hug them. They're your grandfather. But I don't feel right around them. Well, they're fine. They're safe. So you learn to stop trusting at a very young age. You learn to stop trusting your own intuition. So abilities go quiet because that person outside of me is telling me, the person that's supposed to be my protector, whatever, or it's evil, it's bad. You know, you didn't hear that. You didn't see that that person was going to pass away, or you didn't see that person really here. So you start to like question your own reality. It's a lot of like gaslighting, right? So you stop questioning, you know, or connecting in with your own intuition, your own gifts. That's how it gets shut down and goes dormant. It gets opened back up when you start to allow it again and accept it and feel safe using it, or you're unable to ignore it anymore. It also gets shut down if you get afraid, like, you know, you feel fear connected to it because you were taught that that stuff is not normal or it's bad. Religion can teach you that, whatever. Earthbounds are real. It doesn't happen all the time. So the encounters I've had with earthbound energies are, one of them specifically in my house. Two of them in my house, but one of them specifically, which is an interesting story, is my property. There's a house behind mine that was built in the late 1800s. And the house that my property is on were connected at one point. They got split up and sold. And on my property, which I always knew, and it did get validated by a person who grew up in the area, I knew there was always a building, like a barn or something, where my house sits now. There was an energy, and my oldest daughter was very young. And when I first moved in, there was an older woman, and she said, "Oh, I'm so glad you're here." And I thought, oh, she must like kids and my family. That's really cool. And then my daughter woke up in the middle of the night screaming and pointing in the far corner of her room. There was no door or anything. There was nothing there. And I could see psychically this dark, heavy energy. So I held her in my arms and I sat in the middle of a room and I filled it with white light and I started connecting in with that energy to figure out what it was. And what had happened was, and the old woman showed up, what had happened was this man was connected to the original house and the original property, and he spent a lot of time in this barn. And he had a belief system in that lifetime, religion that he was connected to, about sins and being bad and God not accepting you or loving you and not being accepted into heaven or the other side if you were this type of person. He was not a very good person. So what happened was, because he was so hard on himself, even in passing and negative and turning inwards, it starts to attract more negative energy. And they sort of morphed into this like monstery, dark, negative thing that then began to feed on negative energy and scaring and fear of others. And little kids are an easy tap for that. Depressed people are an easy tap for that. And so what I did was I called upon my angels and my guides, and I surrounded him with white light, and I filled him with love, and I reassured him that he would be accepted on the other side, and that belief was wrong. And I continued to reassure him, and he eventually morphed back into this frail old man and was taken over. He was carried over by the angels. He didn't go on his own. Like he was willing to go, but he was carried over. So earthbounds do exist. And that's why they exist, because they're attached to this old, scary, negative belief system that they're not welcome over on the other side. And so they don't go. Can there be realms tied to nature? Like ethereal realms? Yes, absolutely. No, I don't agree that white is one and dark is the other as far as spirits being earthbound or crossed over or anything like that. Because like my daughter and my daughter now is talking about seeing spirits now and how she sees them in like shadowy form or darker, heavier form. And that's how I saw them when I was little. So I don't, and they're definitely not. Cause she's like, it's great grandpa. I'm like, yeah, I'm sure it is. Cause I've been seeing my husband's grandparents around a lot lately. So, that doesn't necessarily mean that. He was carried by his shoulders. No, he was sort of like like carried like, like a baby almost. Oh, are you looking to connect in with him? Yeah, he was wearing pants. But he was carried more like a baby. Anyway, I really have to go because I really have to leave and go get my daughter and wake up my other two to go do that. So I hope you guys have a lovely, lovely Friday. This was wonderful connecting in with you. Have a great weekend. I will see you Sunday night. Come back. We'll do this again. I promise. I promise we'll do this again. Have a lovely, lovely night. And enjoy your own spiritual journeys and connecting in and finding your own truth in what you connect with spiritually. And I will see you guys again soon for this talk and on Sunday for readings. Have a good day.